For 10 years, I told people about this beautiful time, this 18-month stretch, where Esme and I didn't have a single argument, not one crossword. And I told that story to everybody like it was my trophy. But looking back on it, I think it was the most damage we had ever done to each other. And we did every bit of it without ever raising our voices. Because during that time, we weren't at peace. We had this quiet agreement where we took every one of our little differences that we had, all those frustrations, and we had just piled it into a closet and shut the door. And nothing we ever put in there went away. It just sat in the dark and rotted. And that rot, it's infectious. So if you're sitting in a quiet house right now, feeling like there's nothing actually wrong that you can put your finger on, but you still feel like you're living with a roommate and not a partner, this might just be how you got there. And the fix is not what you've been told. So picture this. Something would happen between Esme and I'd get upset, and I'd go off to my studio or to the bedroom. I'd shut the door, telling her that I just needed some time to cool off. But while I'm in there, I'm not cooling off at all. I'm talking to my demons. That's what I call it, talking to demons. Because that's exactly what it is. I'm in there playing out conversations that never happened. I'm saying every single thing that I've been avoiding and holding on to for weeks. She's saying whatever I assign her to say. I'm not processing anything. I'm just building my case. I'm writing her lines for her, and I'm always winning because I'm the only one in the room. And this isn't a 20-minute process. This can go on for days. But recently I realized something. The second I catch myself in there rehearsing, that's not me needing more time to calm down. That's my alarm. That's my mind telling me that the window is closing. Every minute I stay behind that door rehearsing the conversation, I'm getting worse at having the conversation to come, not better. That's exactly how the closet gets filled up. And doing that costs me a lot. And it all started with that 18-month period of time that I looked at and held on to like it was a trophy. Last video, I talked to you all about how I had filed for divorce, how I moved out, and eventually we did find our way back to each other. And I thought at the time that the only reason for any of that was the baby. So picking up there, we come back together and we decide, all right, we're doing this together for the long haul. But what that decision ended up turning into was a quiet agreement, an unspoken agreement, where we decided that whatever differences that we had, we were just going to set them aside. We weren't going to address anything. We're just going to move forward because we're in this thing together. And so for 18 months, that's exactly what we did. Not a single argument. But here's the thing. When it comes to a relationship, when it comes to arguments, there's really only 4 things that you can do with the problem. You can leave, you can speak up about it, you can wait and hope that it gets better on its own, or you can just let the whole thing fall apart. 2 of those things are good, 2 of them less so. And for Esme and I, we had picked waiting and hoping. And this is what it got us, because waiting and hoping is on the good side. It's an option, and it can actually work, but you still have to actually be doing something. You can't be adding more problems to the top of it. But we weren't doing anything. We were completely passive about it. And when you're completely passive, waiting and hoping quietly turns into letting the whole thing fall apart. But there's no day where you can look at and say, oh, that's when it happens. There's no line that you cross because nobody decides anything. It just falls apart, which is exactly why you can't tell from inside your own house. 2 people who worked everything out and don't have any outstanding major problems, and 2 people who just stop bringing anything up, they look identical. People often say with a lot of pride, we never fight. And it might mean that nothing is wrong. Or it could mean that they stopped asking the questions. They stopped raising their concerns. And this delicate balance for Esme and I went on for 18 months until we moved. In 2014, we had left active duty stationed in Colorado, and we had came back to Washington. And we went from a house with just a handful of people in it to a 2-bedroom apartment with 8 people in it. So the pressure on our relationship dynamic, it went way up. And that agreement started to fall apart rapidly. Because none of our problems stayed in Colorado. Every single thing that we hid in that closet came right along with us. And it didn't come out as a big blow up. It came out as 2 words. You always. She would often tell me, you always make me feel this way. You always say that. You always do this. You always do that. And every single time that she had said that to me, it felt so unfair. Because whatever we were actually talking about in that moment, it was a small thing. But eventually, I started to understand what those 2 words actually were. Because when you carry around enough hurt that you never say out loud, it stops being a memory and it turns into a lens. And everything your partner does, you start to view through that lens. You come home late because your boss calls a last-minute meeting, but she views that as you always prioritizing work over family. You forget the formula because the list was 50 items long and you got overwhelmed just tracking it all down in the store. And that becomes, you never care about the baby. And that's exactly what was happening between Esme and I. She wasn't fighting with me about the thing that was in front of us. She was in that room, the closet, with all of those unspoken frustrations. She'd been keeping an inventory since Colorado, since the day that we had made that unspoken agreement. But truth be told, I had one too, but I built mine in a different room. And the thing is that neither one of us ever once showed the other person what was behind our individual door. That's a marriage that was already in trouble, regardless of if we had figured it out or not. And the part that really makes me crazy about all this is that I didn't build my closet by ignoring good advice. I built it by taking good advice very seriously. Because after my brother was murdered, I spent years struggling with my anger. At some point, after causing a ton of damage, I learned that it was best for me to just walk away. And that's a very healthy thing that I had learned. But the truth was I wasn't walking away calm. I was walking away and I was taking all of that hurt, all that anger and frustration with me. And I was ready to go and sit down and listen to myself. Ready to hear about how justified I was, how right I was, and how bad of a human that Esme is. I had to figure that out the hard way. That behind the door, on my own, that walking away was actually where the damage was getting done. Recently, I had read some work from the Gottmans. John and Julie Gottman, I've talked about them before, they're relationship experts. And they say that when an argument starts escalating, it's good to take at least a 20-minute break. The chemicals that spike your heart rate and put your body into that fight mode, they take about 20 minutes to clear. There's no rushing it. But that's only half of what they said. The other half is actually the more important half. Don't spend those 20 minutes going back over the argument. And they even name 2 thoughts that you have to stay away from. I don't have to take this anymore. And why are they always picking on me? Almost word for word. Those are my demons. And someone wrote them down long before I was even born. So the advice was never to just walk away. The advice was to walk away and stop thinking about it. Because you can't vent your way out of these frustrations. Chewing on it isn't getting it out of your system. It's just more time talking to your demons. And you can't even tell when it's happening. That's the part that really gets you. You think you're calm long before you actually are. And that's the same reason that none of this is visible while you're living in it. You can't see the demons working on you. And you can't see that closet filling up either. Because we're all watching for the wrong thing. We're looking for that slammed door. We're looking for the text that we weren't supposed to find. The big final argument that ends it all. We're all sitting around searching for a catastrophe. And if you're watching for the explosion, you're never going to see this quiet erosion. Because the erosion doesn't happen in the big moments. It happens in the small ones. A question that goes unanswered. A comment that gets ignored. Your wife points at something out the window and you don't look up because you're 3 replies deep into a work email that could have waited until Monday. Every one of those is a bid for connection. A little reach for your attention. And it either gets met or it doesn't. And nobody remembers one of those, right? It only becomes noticeable after there's 1,000 of them that have piled up. And that's the trap, because not one of them ever feels like it's big enough to bring up on its own. One missed question feels like nothing. And how do you have a conversation about nothing? So you don't. And into the closet it goes. And look, most people think that neglect is something that a bad person does deliberately. But neglect is really just an act of omission. It's the conversation that didn't happen. It's the interest that wasn't shown. And not meaning to doesn't change anything for the person on the receiving end of it, because it's never one thing. It's 1,000 small moments where you had the choice. Walk through the door and say the hard thing, or walk behind it and talk to demons. So this is the part that I tell you that you need to get up and go have that hard conversation. Because when you ask divorced people what actually ended their marriage, in their opinion, one of the primary answers is conflict and arguing, which is really funny because here I am sitting here telling you to go have the hard conversation, go have that conflict. So let me be clear about what it is that I'm talking about, because this is exactly what I had gotten wrong for so long. A conflict and a fight are not the same thing. A conflict is just a difference of opinion between two people. That's it. That's all it is. It's neutral. It's not good. It's not bad. Every marriage, every relationship on earth has them constantly. But a fight, on the other hand, is what happens when that conflict, that difference of opinion, is fueled by emotion, where you let emotion, uncontrolled, run the entire conversation. So conflict never ended anybody's marriage. What ended it is what they had done with it. The difference isn't whether or not you feel something. You're going to feel it. You should feel it. There is going to be emotion. The difference is whether or not you're letting that emotion drive the conversation. And it's a hard conversation going to them on purpose because you want a better relationship. Out of those 4 things, though, it's the only one that is both active and good at the same time. And intentionality requires action. This is what it looks like for me. And I'm not guessing at this because I've tested it a lot. I piss Esme off a lot. If I walk in there with my emotion in the driver's seat and I'm pointing a finger at her, even if it's on accident, and I'm telling her, you did this to me, you're wrong, look how right I am, every single time it becomes a fight. But if I can stay objective, if I can go in there not to express my own feelings or to justify them, but to try and understand what her feelings on the situation were, those conversations end well every time. And I'll be real with you, it's not easy. That's probably the hardest fucking thing I've ever had to do in my marriage. But I do know that I can't do it at all once those demons have me. If I've been rehearsing for 3 days, I'm not walking out there to understand a damn thing. I'm walking out there with my closing argument in hand. And those demons can get you quick too. Sometimes my demons talk to me within minutes, within seconds, and sometimes they wait hours or days. And you just can't plan around that because you think you got out clean when they don't talk to you right away. But then a few days later, there they are. And you can't outrun it, but you can out-intention it. So what I do is once I realize that those demons are talking to me, and it doesn't always happen right away, I view that as an alarm. And the second that I realize that it's happening, I immediately stop talking to them and I go to talk to Esme. Not to deliver my case, but to ask questions and to be curious. Hey, you said this thing and it's been sitting on me and it's weighing on me heavily. I really want to understand what you meant by that. Can you help me understand that? That's it. And the longer that you wait, those demons doing their work, it just becomes impossible to have that conversation. And the more I practice this, the better I am at understanding that alarm, at recognizing when they are talking to me. And then I can go have that hard conversation quicker. And listen, this doesn't mean never walk away. Walking away is important if you need to do it. That 20 minutes is real. Just understand that the clock starts the second you leave the room, and it's running against you. And that 20 minutes only works if you're not spending it talking to demons. And so many people do this. You know, when you ask divorced people whose fault it was who ended their marriage, over 1/3 of them blame their ex, but only 1 in 20 blame themselves. Almost everybody leaves a marriage with a closing argument, but very few of them leave with a question. Now, I know some of you are already arguing with me in your head going, cool story, Dan, but my partner will never have those conversations with me. Yeah, I get it, because Esme won't either. You know, she shies away from these kinds of things. She shuts down. And even sometimes she'll be upset if I bring it up at all. She feels like I'm forcing her into a conversation. And that's not cowardice on her part. That's protection because of all the struggles that she had grown up with in her most formative years. Hiding away from all of that pain is what kept her safe. That's her defense mechanism. And it works. And in our house, our roles are completely backwards because usually it's the man who goes quiet and the woman who wants to talk everything out. But in my house, it's flipped. I'm the one who wants to talk about everything. And I'm probably too open. I mean, here I am. But I'm willing to go in and do that dark work. I'm willing to look in the mirror knowing full well that the darkness is going to be staring right back at me. And she's not in that same place on her journey though, nor is she obligated to be. Because the reality is, my job isn't to force her through her journey. My job is to support her through it. And that means that this lands harder on me, not lighter. I don't get to avoid the conflict. I have to open as many doors to it as I possibly can, without judgment, without pointing the finger, without letting a week's worth of demons wiggle their way into the room with us. So a lot of those conversations aren't fruitful. Some of them add to the hurt for both of us. But I have them anyway. Because every door that I don't open is one more thing that's going to go into that closet. And I know exactly what happens when that closet gets full. So if you're in that house right now and it's quiet and you can hear your closet creaking trying to force itself open, that's your sign to get to work. You're not going to empty that closet by waiting around for a catastrophe to give you permission. Because the catastrophe isn't coming. That's not how this one ends. It just erodes slowly and quietly. So you need to go to the source of that quiet erosion and you start addressing it right there. You've got to be just as intentful with your pursuit of conflict as you have been with your neglect of all the small stuff. So go, right now. Go find the smallest thing, the one that just feels like it's not worth bringing up, the one you'd feel ridiculous saying out loud. Bring that one up with curiosity, with honesty, with love, not trying to be right. That's where it starts. Because 18 months without an argument isn't a trophy, it's a receipt. So if any of this sounded familiar, especially the part about talking to demons behind a closed door, I made a whole video about how my defensiveness nearly cost me everything. It's on the screen right now. I'll talk to you all soon. Cheers.